Welcome back to the program. On Monday of last week, it was announced that U.S. President Donald Trump will be speaking with President Muhammadu Buhari on the telephone. For hours after both leaders spoke, it seemed the conversation was being kept secret until the president's media spokesperson, Femi Adesina, put us out of our misery by releasing a press statement on what they talked about. 2 days later, the White House made available the readout of the president's call. According to the readout, both leaders discussed strong cooperation between the United States and Nigeria, including on shared security, economic and governance priorities. President Trump expressed interest in working with President Buhari to expand the strong partnership, and the leaders agreed to continue to close coordination and cooperation in the fight against terrorism in Nigeria and worldwide. President Trump expressed support for the sale of aircraft from the United States to support Nigeria's fight against Boko Haram, and he thanked President Buhari for the leadership he's exercised in the region and the importance of a strong, secure and prosperous Nigeria that continues to lead in the region and in international fora. And that's it. Now, we had wondered what kind of policy the Trump administration would have towards Nigeria. You remember President Barack Obama, much as he tried to build ties with Africa, never really singled Nigeria out as a viable partner on the continent. During his administration, not once did he come to Nigeria, and at a point we saw a lull in U.S. support in the fight against Boko Haram when he stopped selling weapons to Nigeria over concerns over human rights. But that's all water under the bridge now. Both countries are now striving to restore closer ties. From President Trump's conversation, though, it is clear that Nigeria may not be a major focus since Trump has promised to put America first. But it is significant that the first African leader President Trump has spoken with is Nigeria's. That conversation may have been without an invitation to the White House, but it was just 2 years ago that President Barack Obama invited President Buhari to the White House. President Obama made it clear the United States was prepared to increase efforts towards helping Nigeria tackle the menace of Boko Haram, plus partnerships focused on improving governance, non-oil economic growth and human development. The millions of dollars of investments in the country is also something to consider. So the question now is not what the Trump administration can do for Nigeria. Nigeria can leverage on already existing ties to also make Nigeria great again.
Here's a review of other discussions in diplomatic circles, beginning with this video posted to social media showing military planes bombarding the Syrian besieged city of Hama and Deraa in what monitors have said could be an intensification of assaults west of the country. One clip shows plumes of smoke rising in the distance in what the video described as warplane strikes over the city of Latamina in northern Hama. In another clip, we see what could be Russian jets striking Deraa. Much of western Syria is covered by an ongoing but shaky ceasefire between the government and rebels that took effect on December 30. But fighting has continued as warring sides accuse each other of truce violations as countries prepare for talks on the Syrian crisis this week. Meanwhile, the United Nations envoy to Syria, Staffan de Mistura, says talks to be held from February 23rd in Geneva would aim to see if there was a window for political negotiations to advance. He also said the Geneva talks would be based on UN Security Council Resolution 2254.
Are we going to see all these three pillars of 2254 moving forward in Geneva? I can't tell you. And frankly, I, like the Secretary General, don't make myself illuded about it. What I do know, that we have to push for the momentum. Because even a ceasefire with two strong guarantors cannot hold too long if there is not a political horizon.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, just back to Jerusalem after his meeting with US President Donald Trump, told cabinet ministers on Sunday that a new day has dawned on Israel-US relations. Mr. Netanyahu said he agreed with President Trump to create terms to tackle different issues, including Israeli settlement construction in the West Bank. He spoke amid new reports in Israel's Haaretz Daily on a secret meeting he held last year with leaders of Egypt and Jordan in a failed attempt by the Obama administration to convene a wider regional summit on Israeli-Palestinian peace. Citing unidentified senior officials in the Obama administration, the paper said Prime Minister Netanyahu Egyptian President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, Jordan's King Abdullah, and U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry convened on February 21, 2016 in the Jordanian Red Sea resort of Aqaba. But the initiative to involve other Arab states in the pursuit of peace with the Palestinians ultimately fizzled after Mr. Netanyahu withdrew his initial support, pointing to opposition within his right-wing government. Finally, South Korea's Unification Ministry says it believes the regime of Kim Jong-un is responsible for the death of King Jong-nam in Malaysia. Malaysian police have already detained one North Korean and are in search for 4 more. The country's Deputy National Police Chief Noor Rashid Ismail identified the latest North Korean suspects in a press conference on Sunday. He named them as 33-year-old Ri Ji-yong, 34-year-old Hong Song-hak, 55-year-old Oh Jong-gil, and 57-year-old Ri Jae-nam. He said the men left on February 13th, same day Kim Jong-nam was killed, and had arrived on different days within the previous fortnight. However, the Malaysian authorities are finding it hard to believe North Korea had anything to do with Jong-nam's death because there's been no proof. While awaiting full results of an autopsy conducted on Wednesday, police believe poison was forced into Kim's face as he waited to board a flight to Macau.
Welcome back. One inauguration was not enough for Gambian President Adama Barrow. Though inaugurated on Gambian soil in Senegal, the president declared last week that another inauguration would take place in the Gambia on Saturday, which would now be known as Independence Day. Not only was a huge celebration on Saturday, he pardoned 174 prisoners of the Mile 2 prison who were unjustly served by the previous government.
The second inauguration, better known as Independence Day, took place in a parked stadium in Bakau, west of the Gambian capital Banjul. The crowd cheered widely when Senegalese President Macky Sall arrived for the ceremony in thanks for securing the safe return of the president to Gambia. The new Chief Justice Hassan Boubacar administered the oath, while 3 leaders in the ECOWAS mandatory team from Liberia, Ghana and Sierra Leone looked on. President Muhammadu Buhari, who led the delegation back then, was absent as he is still in London awaiting results from medical tests done a few weeks ago. Other African leaders present were Mauritanian President Mohamed Ould Abdelaziz and President Alassane Ouattara of Côte d'Ivoire. In the few weeks that he has been president, Adama Barrow has made major changes to Gambia's relations with the international community, announcing during the week that Gambia would remain in the International Criminal Court. Former President Yahya Jammeh had announced the country's withdrawal in October last year. The withdrawal had not yet taken hold. According to the terms of the Rome Statute, a state's withdrawal goes into effect a year after initial notification. Gambia had accused the court of being biased against Africans, with one government minister going as far as to describe it as the International Caucasian Court. Gambia also announced plans to rejoin the Commonwealth. British Foreign Secretary Boris Johnson, during an official visit to the country on Tuesday, promised Britain's help in making it happen.
I'm delighted to say that the Gambia is now on the path back into the Commonwealth. And we'll try and do that as fast as possible. But the other thing, of course, is that there is so much we can do to help on education, on infrastructure, on security, on helping with the tourist industry. And we discussed all those things.
A Commonwealth spokesman said in December that representatives from Barrow's team had spoken with them and had warm and friendly discussions. It withdrew from the Commonwealth in 2013 under former President Yahya Jammeh.
And that's the program this week. I'm glad you could join us. The addresses to reach us on are on your screen. I am Amarachi Ubani. I'll see you next time.